Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and interdimensional eldritch beings. This has been a long time since I've posted anything, and I don't know if anybody's still watching this, but God, this is the last time I posted a video. I'm working on I'm working with some new technology, and normally the video would be playing as I'm doing the voiceover, so I'm able to reference what I'm seeing. But I haven't figured out how to do that with this new editing software yet. So I'm recording this without seeing it and just referring to my notes to try to do this. I didn't have to tell you that. You could have just watched the video, you probably would not have known. It's not the point, though. I like the whole transparency of all of this. If anybody, still watches this channel, it's fun. I do this for fun. This is a hobby, so I just want to give my thoughts on the first zone in Dragonflight. I'm going to do each zone, and I figured I could do the whole thing in one video, or I could do it zone by zone. And I think zone by zone is more appropriate, especially for the first zone, because there was just so much to unpack. It was a lot. It was a lot of fun. I was shocked. When the first time I felt disappointment in World of Warcraft was Warlords of Draenor. I was excited for Mists of Pandaria. I really liked it. I've pushed harder in Mists of Pandaria than I've ever pushed in World of Warcraft before. I cleared Mythic Gold, or whatever it's called, the time dungeons, the challenge mode. I got my lock set. None of my friends had it. None of them had the patience to do it. I was leading groups. I was creating groups. I was curating people, doing trials to try to create the A-team to make sure we could all time gold times to all get our sets, and we did it. I led a raid group. We were part of a guild, and the guild was not doing so well internally, so we broke off, and I formed my own raid group with my friends, and we ended up surpassing them, going all the way to Siege of Orgrimmar. Took my girlfriend, never played World of Warcraft before, got her into Heroic, killed Heroic Garrosh, got him on farm. We were bringing in pugs all the time just to help people get their mount before it ended. We were really pushing. It was fun. But I lost that spark because when I saw Warlords of Draenor coming out, when I saw what they were doing with the Garrosh storyline, where they didn't kill him, they're like, well, we're not going to kill him. You should have killed him. You should have killed him in cold blood. He killed enough people. It was a genocide what he did. The storyline of well, we're not going to kill him because it's the wrong thing to do. That was really bad writing to try to just justify the whole Draenor expansion. They already had Draenor in the bag, and they're like, how do we justify this? We need what's called an inciting incident. And an inciting incident is what's used in writing. It's an event has to happen which works as the catalyst to kickstart the next series of events. Often, an inciting incident, the most common inciting incidents, are often the parents being killed. In Disney films, most Disney films start with the parents being killed because as soon as the parents die, the main character no longer has something to fall back on. They have no choice but to go forward. If they still had their parents alive, Frodo wouldn't have to destroy the ring. He could just be comfy in mommy's house and live in her basement until he dies. But with nothing to fall back onto, the character can only go forward. So writers create inciting incidences. So when you're watching a show or a film or a story, as things unfold, in your mind, you're not fighting against, that doesn't make any sense. I wouldn't do that. As you're watching it, you're saying, there's no other choice. I would do the same thing. I can't imagine what else they would do. Well, there's no other option except to move forward and progress the story. So that's what that was with Garrosh, but it was a bad inciting incident. An example of some good inciting incidents are Breaking Bad. Whenever I would watch Breaking Bad or a show like Ozark, everything made sense. I don't know what else they would do besides what they did. It seemed like the most rational option at the time, even though the decisions they were making at the time in those shows were unbelievably dangerous and stupid and risky, but you don't have a choice when you're in that circumstance. So that it was a cleaner transition to push the story along in those shows than it was in Warlords. And I felt that it was the same thing with Battle for Azeroth. And don't get me started with Shadowlands. We just want to forget about Shadowlands. That was a cluster. And I will not finish that sentence. I just wasn't a fan. The whole thing made no sense. I'm a writer first. I love this game because I love story, and the last few expansions, as they were coming out, as they were announcing it, and everybody was screaming at BlizzCon, I lied to myself and said I was excited, but I knew it was a lie at the time. I knew it was a lie, but it was copium. I was trying to justify. I just had a good time in Mists, and I'm just not ready for change. But it's going to be great. But it wasn't great, and it sucked, and it hurt for 3 expansions, and it drags on, and we're bruised and hurt, and we feel like we've been betrayed by something that we once loved, because we did love WoW, and we're diehard. The Insurgents of Classic and Wrath of the Lich King should go to show the love and affection we still have for this game when it was at a state that was decent. Keep in mind, Jesus Christ, this is such a rambly post. Keep in mind, Classic is an unfinished game, and even Wrath is an unfinished game. The new Wrath that they released is glitchy and buggy and stuff, but the core principles of the game is what we like about it. Like, many people are willing to tolerate the underdevelopedness of Wrath of the Lich King because overall, a lot of things about retail are much better. There's no way around it. It's more convenient, and assuming you don't have all day to play this game, it's better to play retail because you have more, especially now with what they're doing in Dragonflight, which we'll get to, but overall, the game is more streamlined, and it's easier to just sit down and play for an hour without having to get behind, a week behind in progress of your friends. If you only have a little bit of time to play at a time, retail's perfect, and you can still stay up to date with your friends, versus in Wrath, you sort of have to play like a job to really maintain that level of quality, and in Classic, even more like a job. Classic requires the most time. But I really didn't like I didn't like Shadowlands, I didn't like Battle for Azeroth, I didn't like the Warlords. So going to Dragonflight, I felt the same thing. I'm like, I just don't care. Like, I know they're trying to make it look epic. It just looks boring. It just looks like another Mists of Pandaria. Like, the zones sort of suck. The zones in Shadowlands looked a little cooler. The zones in BFA were great. One last thing, and then I'm gonna stop talking about this. When I say it sucks, I mean the design elements of the game sucks. The borrowed power systems suck. The having to Legion was not bad, but having to funnel all your things into a weapon or a necklace or something else the whole time, and it just, and then to just lose it. I understand we do the same thing with gear, except the difference is the gear's constantly changing. It's never the same necklace. It's never the same piece of gear, so you don't get as attached to it. Because when you're spending an entire X-Pack, feeding into the exact same item for a year or 2+ years, and then you just throw it away, and you can't even disenchant it or sell it, it feels bad. With people say you replace tier every expansion or whatever, but like you're replacing tier, the first dungeon comes out with tier, then the second dungeon comes out in an expansion with tier, then the third dungeon in an expansion comes out with tier, and you've replaced tier 3 times in that expansion, so you're not as attached to it. Plus, you're upgrading it for better tier, but in these freaking these other expansions, when you're taking away your my Heart of Azeroth, for example, on my Demon Hunter, was broken with a capital B. It was so strong, it was frightening. The second they took that away, I felt weak. It sucked. Like there was no benefit to removing it. I just lost, and that doesn't feel good. And that's the difference between tier and these borrowed powers. So I was apprehensive about Dragonflight. It seemed a little bit gimmicky. The zones seemed okay. The dragon riding, like, I don't know. It sort of seems like Flying 2.0. It doesn't seem that good. But I was wrong. I went into it with an open mind, and God, it's 8 minutes in. It's fun to get to the video if you're still here. If anyone's listening to this ramble. This is what I wrote. Zone 1 felt epic. It felt larger than life. It reminded me of classic WoW. It was brilliant. The whole startup event, the pre-patch when the elementals were invading the barons, that felt really cool. And I pre-ordered the Dragonflight expansion just to get I was actually close to release when I pre-ordered. I was hemming and hawing because I didn't even know if I really wanted to play it, but I pre-ordered it like a few days before just so I could play the lizard people, good lord, Drakthir, and it was fun, and they're fun. They're sort of gimmicky. I don't love how you can't really wear armor on them, but that's okay. The last few races they came out with have not been great, just because the armor, like the mecha gnomes, you can barely wear armor. But it is what it is. Overall, I liked the pre-patch. The pre-patch was fun. It was a really good build-up. Launch happens. Everybody's standing on the boat. We're all excited. The boat's coming in. It says 2 minutes until the boat arrives. We're all jumping. It felt exciting. It's like, this is the launch. This is why you gotta log in on launch day. It was awesome. One last tangent on the side. I gotta give them credit. This was the best launch they've had in a long time. Most launches have been absolutely disastrous. And overall, it was pretty smooth compared to Shadowlands or the previous year's launches where they were down for like 3 days nonstop. They were up pretty quick. I was in the game pretty quick. A lot of my friends were in the game pretty quick. Overall, pretty good. But as soon as that boat arrives in the Dragon Isles, it feels epic. Like that was a good job. Like it just feels like you're an invader on a new land, and the kicker, what I would argue, is the most important aspect that drives this entire expansion. And I will die on this hill, and I will fight anybody that disagrees with this, because like after years of like studying writing, loving writing, trying to slowly develop a career in writing, I will die on this hill that the success behind this expansion is predicated on the idea that when you enter the Dragon Isles, you are not the hero. You're insignificant, you're nobody, you're not going to do anything. There's a whole war going on, and you're just a small speck in a much larger game. You're going to try your best to help the individual people and the small tribes around the area, but you're not going to save the day. You're not Superman, you don't have your Heart of Azeroth, you're not helping Magni, you're not stopping Sargeras from destroying the world. You're just a small foot soldier in a much larger game of chess. And that's the brilliance of it. The brilliance is that when you're not number one and you just get to just experience this world, it feels bigger. When you have to save the whole world, it's a smaller world now. But when the whole world can kill you, the world feels bigger. And that's what you want. You want enemies that are larger than life. You don't want to be the strongest thing in the room. And that's what every expansion, at least the past 4 expansions, have been. You're the strongest thing in the room. You need to save Azeroth, you need to save the world, you need to stop the old gods. It's like, what if, can't they just be... Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, who's arguably one of the, I didn't say the most, one of the most well-respected horror writers of all time, is so well-respected and held in such high regard because there was a hopelessness to his writing. It wasn't about defeating these eldritch beings. It was just tough. Tough, TS, they say tough, SHI, you know what. Because you're not going to defeat it. You don't even defeat it. You can't even fathom its existence. It's so superior to you. You're nothing but a small speck in a much larger interdimensional plane of existence. And whether you understand it or not is not your pay grade. That's not your pay grade. It doesn't matter whether you do or you don't. It's just it's much larger than you. And that's a frightening feeling, but that's what we're after, because that's what makes excitement, because that's when you think, I don't know, can I do it? It's an uphill battle the whole way. But that gives us the hero's journey. That gives us we're fighting against the impossible. That's why Star Wars is so successful, because if Luke Skywalker if he was overpowered from the beginning, the movie stinks. The whole idea of the movie is that he's nothing, and he has to overcome this gargantuan beast. It's a David versus Goliath story, and it only happens through trials and tribulations and training and making friends and learning lessons along the way, and over time you develop enough just to have a glimmer of hope that maybe you can challenge him. You don't know you're going to defeat him, you don't even think you can defeat him, but at the very least you think you may have a chance to save humanity. And that glimmer of hope is what this whole expansion is predicated on. It's not that, guys, you're going to get strong enough, you're going to defeat whoever the villain is in this X-Pack, which I don't even know yet. Maybe that big lightning dragon. I don't think that's the villain. That's like the first villain. There's always like an Azoth all the way at the end. This is like the first small villain. This is your Grohl. This is your Karazhan, whoever this lightning dragon is. But I like that it's too strong. I like that it's killing everything. I like that we're a small speck in a much larger thing, because it feels good. It feels bigger. I haven't even talked about dragon riding yet. Maybe we can talk about that in the next one. We're almost at 15 minutes at this point. Jesus Christ. The zone was brilliant. I love that Rathian is back. Rathian is a great character because he's an anti-hero. He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's sort of in the middle. He does what's best for him first, and that's a good character. I don't like these archetypes of these Superman or Devil archetypes. I like more of a gray area where like they do some questionable things, but overall they're generally have good intentions most of the time, unless it's inconvenient for them. I like that better. That's a better character. It's more relatable. It's deeper. It doesn't feel. That's why I never really liked Superman. He was just too good, and it was just too boring for me. So I think they did a really good job with Rathian. The brother arc, when they brought in the brother, that was super surprising. I was not expecting that. And I know you have to do rep with them. I just started the next zone. What I decided I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the main storyline in each zone, work my way through the whole zone, and then go back. And then do all the side quests, because I figured if I hit cap, and then I do the side quests, if they don't give me experience, I'll get more gold. So I'll be able to build up a little bit more of a gold foundation doing the older quests after I'm level capped, because generally, from my understanding, unless they changed it, once you're capped and can no longer receive experience from quests, the experience then converts into gold in place of it. So that's why I'm doing that. So I don't really know that much about the reputation yet with Rathian and the brother, and you can pick one or the other, or maybe both. You can do both, maybe, I don't know, but it's brilliant. When the brother shows up and Rathian doesn't know him and they're fighting for the throne, it seems like they got new writers. It seems like they got real television or film writers to write this storyline, because it seems more developed. Before, it never seemed this developed. There's a thoroughness in the characters and the character development, the story arcs, the emotions. There's motivations behind their intentions, which I just never felt with, like, why the that panda was taking Garrosh, like, just, or why Sylvanas with the jailer. She just sided with the jailer after this whole thing. Why she went to Icecrown Citadel, none of that made any sense to me. I don't know. Everything felt so forced. It felt so forced. And then at the end, with the killing the jailer, it felt like Deus Ex Machina, I think is how you pronunciate it. Deus Ex Machina, meaning the hand of God, meaning we should not have won against the jailer, but the hand of God comes down and saves the day, just because when you can't write your way out of something, you just say God just saves the day, and that's cheating, and I don't like it, and that's why I thought Shadowlands sucked. But I'm really, is anyone listening to this? I'm really excited for Dragonflight. The storyline with Rathian was brilliant. I'm so excited to learn more. Okay, there's one thing I do want to talk about, which you've probably already seen in this portion of the video, because I'm just playing clips over me, just rambling. But it's when you sit with that dwarf, and you just stare, and he talks about how he's lived forever, and he lost his loved one. It's just him now, and time is like lost meaning, because when you're this old, time doesn't mean what it used to mean anymore. And you could tell he's just sad. He just wants to just stare, and it wasn't epic. It wasn't larger than life, but it had a lot of heart, and it had emotion, and like, it just, that's sometimes that sticks with you more. Like, I remember Man Crick's wife. Do you guys remember Man Crick's wife's quest? Like, that was like a nothing with nothing quest in the Barrens, but people still remember it. Sometimes heart sticks with you, and if there's any takeaway from this ramble, it's that I really enjoyed the first zone of Dragonflight, and I would say that the success of Dragonflight was predicated more on anything than not making you the most important thing in existence, and 2, toning down the epicness. Not everything has to be epic. Sometimes people can just be sad. Sometimes things could be unfair. Sometimes it could be corruption. Sometimes it could be internal family drama. And that's more interesting than this dragon wants to eat the entire world, and if you don't stop him, everything will die unless you, Mr. Individual, can save the day. It just sucks. It just stinks. So I hope that they maintain this speck in the universe mentality where you mean nothing, and slowly, through the efforts of collaboration with you and all the different tribes and the zones and all your players and all the heroes of the story, all together, you all put your power together, come as one, and together maybe you can defeat evil. Maybe together in unity, good can defeat evil. And that's only a maybe. That's the success of this expansion, at least to me. But let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me how terrible I am, how bad my takes are, how I stink at this game. Whatever you want. Nollie the Gnome's back. Thanks for watching.